Hi, Jonathan. It's Kelly here for my last and final honors reflection. I am so excited to share with you about my brewery tour and what I learned and some of my biggest takeaways from the trip. And so, yeah, let's just get right into it. So I'm just going to get into a little layout of what the trip was. So we started in Ohio and we went to Westchester, Mason, Dayton area. And then we flew out to Boulder on Saturday. Was there for a week. Went to a bunch of places. We went to Denver. We went to Fort Collins. And it was awesome. We had a great time. And then after that, we went to Asheville, North Carolina, and we had just a blast. I had never been to Asheville before, and it was really great seeing a new city and just seeing the environment of what Asheville was. Super cute small town, but with a lot of creativity and local brewing community in that area. So I went on this trip with the Farmer School of Business. It was in the marketing, entrepreneurship, and supply chain operations and management programs. I took personally 2 courses. I took the Entrepreneurship 401 capstone, and then I also did a business to business marketing class. So I did marketing 419 and ESP 401. I'm currently still working on my 401 project with my group as we speak. It was an extension of the trip. So we are working on a project that is involving creating a new service or good with the research that we learned from our trip. And so I'm just going to dive deep into a little bit of some of the big research takeaways and favorite parts I had from the trip. So I worked with a great group of kids. I worked with my friend Ethan, Georgia, and Andrew, and we were such a powerful group. We were truly the best for last. I think our presentation was the best, and we got A's in our classes, so that was awesome. But we learned a lot, and it was really cool seeing all the different takeaways that every student had from this trip. So we each were tasked with what are some big insights that we can get from this trip, and what are some overall recommendations we can make on a company profile that we want to dive deep into. So I'm going to get into some of our insights. We chose to analyze one of the breweries down there in Asheville called Whistle Hop. It was a much smaller brewery, but it went with one of our big main insights, which some customers value experiences than just a drink. And there was a guy named Chad Powers from Ohio that said people used to go and drink, and now people want to go do something while drinking. So that was one of our biggest insights that we got from this trip as a team, and we were trying to find ways to analyze that every place that we went and see what activities they had within their pub rooms and tap rooms to engage with their customers and see how can they draw in new customers to their business. Some of the other insights we got were having an award-winning beer can really attract more customers. For some of those beer enthusiasts, that's something that they really value, that we learned about. And seeing what it means to both brewers at a large scale versus a smaller scale was super cool. Sierra Nevada had a lot of award-winning beers, especially considering they own the name Pale Ale. Sierra Nevada also owns Stout and Porter. So who would have thought that 3 classic craft beer name styles would be owned and started in America by Sierra Nevada? I didn't think that was a fun fact that we were going to get, but I thought that was awesome. And then on top of that, each of our group members focused on some insights that they noticed in our trip. We were tasked to find 8 big ones, each person required to find 2. I've already shared with you 3 that really stuck out to me that we studied and focused a lot on in our project, but the 2 that I focused on were beer enthusiasts care more and notice all the little things that make their experience at a brewery better. So at Gilded Goat, it was one of the places that we went in Colorado right before we went to New Belgium. They had these awesome use of screens. It still felt like a pub environment, but it wasn't screens used for sports. It was screens used for education of get to know their staff, get to know your beer tender. And here's what's brewing today in the back. Here's what we have fermenting and aging right now. Here's some of the specials that we have. Here is some of the styles that we have coming out, what we have available canned, some of the flavor notes, all of those things. And I just thought it was a great way to educate and connect with your consumer and build that relationship, and also just break down the barrier of unfamiliarity and making people feel more comfortable. We saw that insight at a lot of different breweries, but Gilded Goat's one stood out to me the most. Some of the other ones that stood out was Burial. It was one of our professors. It was our professor's favorite place that they go. They have a lot of different unique beer names, flavor profiles, styles, and they have an awesome taproom experience. Narrow Path also is very keen on beer names and being unique in pub style. Wild Provisions was a sour Czech lager place, and it was a passion project, and they focused a lot on educating their consumers and people that come into their tap room of, hey, these are some of the unique stuff that we're doing, and these are the different styles, especially about the Czech lager and how different pours affect how the beer tastes and the type of cupping glass that's in. And then Upslope Brewery, it's a B Corp, it wanted to be a mountain and outdoors beer brand. They had this really awesome Japanese rice lager that they try to bring in different flavor profiles and cultures into making them stand out. And New Belgium was just the coolest thing ever in Fort Collins. They had the Foeder Forest, and it was just awesome. And that really stood out to not only everyone on the trip that didn't know about the beer industry, but the beer enthusiasts that love knowing that extra little nerdy touch or fun facts or can appreciate it more, really impacts the experience and the relationship that they build with that brewery of, do I want to go back, and was it memorable enough? So following that insight, another insight I focused on was some consumers value personal connection to their brand and experience with that brand more than others. So something that I was talking about earlier was that our professor's favorite place that we go almost on the entire trip is Burial. It's this place in Asheville, and they have multiple locations across North Carolina, and they're the perfect example of this. They love to build many meaningful relationships with good beer, good vibes, and good people. They have a really strong, loyal fan base because of the cool, unique things that they do. They've opened new taproom locations almost as like a brand extension, and all of those different locations have a completely different style tap room and vibe and aesthetic and atmosphere. Their new tap rooms are fully created to reach new customer demographics and geographics, but it's still rooted in the fact of keeping the brand Burial like at the center of who they are always, which is just a perfect example of what good business and marketing is and building meaningful relationships. And a quote that my professor said that really stuck out to me was from Eric Stentrum. He was our marketing professor on this trip. He said, "It's like a sequel to a movie I want to go see. I'm willing to make the trip because I love Burial so much." That's what we asked him, and his response was if he was ever going to go to some of the other Burial locations with his family when he goes back to North Carolina for spring break. So that was just really cool and fun to hear. Overall, I rounded out all of my alcohol industry knowledge. It was really cool comparing what I had learned this summer with the J. Gallo Winery to all of the things I've learned on this trip about the beer industry. It's a lot more sciencey and high-tech and intricate than I thought it was. And it was just a really cool environment to be a part of. And I got to see a lot of the cool marketing side that I was really interested in learning more about, given the fact I felt like I lacked that this summer. So I'm really fortunate for the opportunity to have had such a great trip. My favorite marketing team that we got to see was Rheingeist, where they basically have an entire marketing agency within their company. And it was fascinating to learn all the different ways they do marketing and build marketing efforts. And it was a lot about, I also was excited that I learned a lot about customer development, category development, and a lot of how e-commerce is coming a little bit into play with some of these craft breweries, of how can we have a presence on social media and how can we bring people in the door, because every brand and owner was so immensely different that it was great to see their perspective, and how some of them were like, I am just not going to be super techie, and some were like, I'm all about the tech, I'm all about integration and making it cool omni-channel experience. And I loved getting to see all the big and the small ones and how different they all were. So awesome trip, and I learned a lot about my two majors, and learned how to recover from failure when things go wrong in the brewing industry. And it made me excited of the possibility of maybe doing a job in the brewing industry instead of working in wine and spirits. So it's nice to know that there's that option. But thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed. And I'm gonna send some TikToks in as well, so you can see those and see some of the places that I got to see as well. Have a good one.